Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Podcast Assemble, the show where you come for your rambling geeky download. My name's Tommy, and I am delighted, as always, to be joined by my friend and co-host who's still across the pond. It's our theoretical physicist of the pod, DL. How are you, mate?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm across the pond still. It's like I haven't been home for this long in a long time, like 6 weeks. It's freaking awesome. It's awesome. It's hot.
I hate you. You're
hot.
Looking so tanned and well, and you shouldn't look that well. It's not fair on the rest of us.
Yeah, well, it's all coming to a crashing halt next week. So,
and I can't wait.
Yes.
Come back to the dark side.
I'll look nice and pasty for you. Yeah, I'm sure. But it's actually way too hot here. Like you step outside, you're like, fuck.
Global boiling getting you good?
Well, I guess like LA is a desert, and I'm
literally
because it's fucking hot.
What's the temperature in not Fahrenheit?
I don't know, but it just feels fun. It'd be like surely in the 90s.
Well, did you see that news in the week that they're saying we've moved past global warming and we're now into global boiling? A little bit terrifying.
Yeah, to be honest, look, it sounds terrifying, but I will say, like, obviously we got to, do what we can, but what we can is only so much, right? If India and China don't abide, we're kind of fucked. And quite frankly, if I'm being honest, like not to get too political.
It's not a political podcast.
When I see things like the apocalypse show and like, listen about like all these things like the Yellowstone volcano, I'm like,
yeah.
Dude, like a comet could hit it and we could go into an ice age. Like,
oh, yeah.
It's all so fragile anyway that I'm like, do we really need to like really kill ourselves over this? Like a meteorite's gonna come take us out.
I feel like this podcast is gradually becoming the existential podcast.
I don't know, man. I'm just like, fuck. Let's worry about the fucking space balloon, like the space comets or meteors. Like that's a bigger concern for me. The fact that we just have no idea.
Aliens are real. Aliens are real.
Because the government told me aliens are real, I now believe they're real less.
Yeah, same. Absolutely. Why is that a thing?
Like actually, like now I'm like, absolutely not. They're fake. Am I just a contrarian?
Like, there's no way the remains they picked up were real now, or at least they're probably Russian or something.
I just like now that I just don't. I guess that's a testament to how little I trust the government.
I
You've told me they're real. Now I'm like, they're fake. I was fully on board before. But now that you've said this, I'm like, I don't believe a word out of you guys. It's opposite day for you.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't exist. We are the only intelligent life in the galaxy. Anyway, I digress.
Terrifying. But what's been happening, man? What's been keeping you busy in that hot weather?
Dude, we're running this weird schedule where like, we had our end of quarter calls at like 11:30 at night. So I'd like finish my work day at like 12:30.
So you're on Australia time in the States.
Yeah, I'd start work at like 3 p.m., finish at like, I don't know, 11:30, 12:30, depending on like when my meetings were. But always we had an end of day call, so I had to be on. Now that that's done, it's a bit better. But basically because that I'd end at like 12:30 and be like, oh, but I still want to like do stuff.
Yeah.
So I'd stay up to like 2 a.m. watching something and then like wake up at 10 and do it all over again. It was just, I'm in this weird, I'm almost adjusted to the Aussie time zone before I get back, which will actually be helpful. But so I've been doing a lot of that late night watching. Been to some Dodger games. I'm going to see the Tears for Fears at Hollywood Bowl.
Oh, really fun.
Yeah, and so I've been to the Hollywood Bowl twice in my time here, which has been pretty cool. I saw a classical artist before. I saw John Williams. Well, not John Williams. John Williams was in the the composer for everything you've ever heard, and
Oh my god! I thought you meant John Williams is in one of our literal close friends here in Sydney.
No,
what's he doing over there?
John Williams, like the composer and like Star Wars, Jurassic Park, Indiana Jones, and many other modern things.
Real John Williams.
But so I saw a classical artist at the Hollywood Bowl who basically played a bunch of John Williams stuff, and John Williams was in the audience, and so that was pretty cool.
Wow! Imagine seeing your own music being played back to you. What experience would that be?
But dude, I'll tell you what, the mosquitoes out here are real.
Oh my days!
Had one night out, and I showed up within like just like the space of my ankle, 26 mosquito bites.
Oh my god!
26. I have a picture. I counted them.
Put that on our Instagram. I think the whole world wants to see that.
It's like Jurassic Park shit, dude. 26.
I was going to say, like, is it like Jurassic World? Do you have like those giant bugs that are like eating all the crops?
No, they were little, but I mean, like in the mosquito world, doesn't matter how big you are, I guess. You'd appreciate that. You should
Man, I get eaten by mosquitoes whenever I'm in Southeast Asia or the States. They full go for me. I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it was a bit of a pain in my ass. But no, other than that, man, I've been chilling. What about you? What have you been up to?
Dude, so many nice things. We caught up. I've been watching a lot of the women's World Cup.
Yeah,
it's been a lot of fun. I actually went to an England game the other day. So my heritage, not necessarily my home, and we watched a fun game. It was actually after I recorded last week with now friend of the show David Beckfeld. We actually went way over. I didn't tell him. I was like, I've got this. I've got a thing I've got to finish up for around this time. Didn't really put specifics around it. And then we went way over. And by then I was like, yeah, I was supposed to be at the soccer game like 30, 35 minutes ago.
No, bummer.
And luckily, absolute legend, he gave me a lift up. So that was fun. Really fun, man, watching the World Cup. They've made a real spectacle of it. And it's nice to see they're putting a lot more spotlight on it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I haven't watched a single bit of it, but no, I mean, like, true to my American roots, when I moved to America, I just don't care about soccer anymore. Except for, I saw Messi's goal. That was pretty cool.
Good. Which one? There's been plenty.
His first one. I saw the highlight.
His free kick one.
Yeah, his free kick one, which was pretty cool.
Oh, man, he's bringing some real sparkle to that league.
I mean, it's cool for people like football out here, and the fact that you're getting some of these dudes even in their twilight, but like Messi still got like time, I would think.
Oh,
like he did not need to do this, right? Like you think he could? I mean, better than me. Would he be able to start in a Premier League team still?
I reckon just on reputation alone he could.
Yeah, but skills.
Probably. Like, he wouldn't be as dynamic as he was 3 to 5 years ago, but who is? Let's be frank.
Yeah.
I know.
It does feel like his skill set is, though, like, it's not like all power. It is quickness, but it's more like the agility of his touch, not like how fast he is, but I could be completely off base.
So I'd say he's like a luxury player. Like, if you have a really, really good team around him and you can accommodate that, it's like he's not gonna get back and defend. Like, he's just not. So if you've got players,
you just need young dudes around him.
Yeah, you got players who can run and do all that work for him. Yeah, of course, chuck him in with like a Man City or like an Arsenal, something like that. He'd be good in those teams.
Anyway, we got him.
Anyway, guys, if you want to listen to us banter about our weeks, feel free to stick around. You can absolutely do that. There will be time codes in the description. Jump around like the film we're going to talk to today has time jumps in it. Or
just give us a 5-star review.
Woo! 5-star, baby.
Instead of jumping around, just skip the jumping around and give us a review of any kind. We'll take it.
Just review us. That's really nice when you do. We like it when you stick around, but also we love it when you review us. You can do it in-app. You can do it right now. Chuck us in Apple or Spotify or whatever you're in. DL, what have you been up to in our geeky sphere?
Obviously, I've finished The Witcher because it's like this show that I'm obsessed with watching, even though it's just barely above mediocre.
I've got one episode left, so don't spoil the final episode.
You couldn't finish it?
I wanted to finish it last night, but my partner's cousin came over.
So you've seen the one where they do all the time, like, they have a conversation and the episode goes over the course of their conversation. It's the one where they're at the ball.
Yeah, that's the last one before it ends. The first half ends.
Oh, okay, so
I like that one. I thought that one was fun.
Yeah, no, it is fun.
The second to last episode is the one where it's just Syria in a desert for an hour, and it's like, this is so crap.
Oh, that was so bad.
So bad.
That was so. That's you know what that is? That's a fucking preview of what's to come.
Nah, I don't know.
I do.
Surely they'll chuck Liam Hemsworth front and center.
No, she's gonna be. They've even hinted like she's gonna be the main character now.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it's like becoming less of a story about Geralt. Anyway, that was like one of the single worst episodes of television I've seen in a while.
So dull.
Yeah, the next one's better than that.
What's your highlight review of it overall, without giving anything away?
Like it's just like of the season.
Yeah.
It's just like the same that it's been, right? Like at its best, and then it's at its absolute worst, and it averages about like a 7.5.
It likes to jump around like that, doesn't it?
It's just moderately above like average. And it's like has so much potential, but largely it's that way because of a few acting performances and how good the world is, even though they're doing a bad job of showing that off. Like, it still has uniqueness.
I'd say the relationships are good as well. I feel like, I know in the first season, we like call out to our episodes prior when we've talked about this show. We tore Yennefer to pieces. The actor who plays her.
she's.
I think she's really like her relationship to Henry Cavill has really grown in it, and you can tell their on-screen chemistry's got a lot better.
Yeah, they've also just given it time, whereas like before they threw it at your face and they're like, accept that this is the way it is, and it's like, well, no,
they will be girlfriend boyfriend.
You need to give them moments to build that, and I think you just have had that. But I agree, she's kind of most improved. We were so against her, and I think she's done. But I liked her a lot more this season. They gave her more to chew on.
Should most improved be a should that be a category for our end of year award ceremony?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, most improved is a real thing. Like she's definitely most improved. Siri's a really good actress, but like at the end of the day, it's just like some of the dialogue is just, you can't be good when the dialogue's that bad. And Geralt continues to Cavill continues to carry the show. Like without him, it's like it's a 5 or 6. It's not even close to it's a subpar show.
Yeah, like he's not even in that second to last episode. As in, like, he's all messed up, and I don't want you to tell me anything, but like it seems like that's not going to change too much going into the last episode. And I'm like, this show about him, unless there's a miracle and he pulls through, I don't see how he can be a big part of that last episode unless that's part of his transformation. I'm not asking for answers. I'm just making sweeping statements.
I would say overall, what I would say about the show this season, the monster stuff is worse, like way worse.
Okay.
There's very, very few cool monster scenes, whereas 1 and 2 had some.
I don't think it's worse. I just think there's less. Like, so there's the one on the boat. I remember.
There's the one in the maze.
I quite like the one in the maze. I thought that was fun.
It's all right.
It was over too quick, but
it's all the CGI is just not very
like
good.
You in the bedroom. But
got me. The CGI is the CGI is just.
Oh man, do you want to sound less enthused by that? Got me.
That was just not very sophisticated.
Am I supposed to be sophisticated? That's not why I'm here.
I don't know. I'm not going to say it again. The CGI sucks, but the relationships are better, and I really am intrigued by the Emperor and the Emperor's right-hand guy. But like again, just not enough there.
You mentioned the Emperor. Who is the Emperor? Is that the guy who's searching for Ciri?
Yeah, it's her dad. It's Ciri's dad.
Right.
But she doesn't know that.
I don't know why. My brain just blanked that.
But nobody knows that. Nobody knows that except for, I guess, the viewer and him.
Great. That's really helpful for everyone in the show, isn't it?
Yeah.
Why are you searching for her? Yeah. She'd be cool to have around.
Yeah. Anyway, I just think it's a bummer because there was so much potential, and I feel like they were starting to get some things right, and now it's over. Like, there's just no way that it's going to be good moving forward.
Speaking of things which had a lot of potential, I have finished the new season, the new Disney TV show, the Secret Invasion show. Now, it is currently the worst rated Marvel TV show of the MCU era.
Really?
Yeah, on Rotten Tomatoes.
Do you agree with that?
I can't see why people are giving it so much hate. Like, it wasn't terrible. Like, I thought She-Hulk was probably worse. Like, so right, I didn't finish She-Hulk. I think or at least I didn't watch the middle episodes, and I didn't finish Ms. Marvel. That could be because they're for a different demographic or whatever that is, but like, I would say that would be worse because I wasn't interested enough to finish those shows, or at least stick with it long enough to get all of the content. Whereas at least this, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of intrigued to know what happens. I can see why people might not love it because it doesn't, like, it jams what was effectively like a few years of storytelling into like 6 quite short episodes, and does a massive retcon to one of the main characters who was there in like the big final battle of like Endgame. And it's like, I can see why people are frustrated with it, but I don't think it's the worst one. I just think it's a symptom of what's been going on.
Yeah, it probably is. It doesn't inspire me to watch it then.
Well, you will watch it because we're gonna talk. No, I'm kidding.
I was gonna save it and watch it on the flight back, but now I think I might do something else.
Like, give it an episode. See what you think. Like, the first, like, I would say if you're not taken by the first episode, it's probably about as you're not gonna get much more excited than that.
It peaks early.
Well, I mean, it's just consistent. Okay. The best I could say about it is that it's consistent.
Well, I haven't been watching that, but I did watch the first episode of Severance, and I think that might be the thing I watch on the plane.
Oh.
Have you seen it?
Because I want to watch that. That's been on the list for ages.
Dude, the first episode is so good.
Can you tell me the premise?
I can tell you the premise without ruining it because like you kind of figure it out,
Yeah.
and like basically it's already been told.
I think I know, but like I'm keen to hear what your POV on it.
I won't say anything that would spoil anything past the first 20 minutes of the episode.
Great.
The premise is like in this world, and it's not a world too distant from ours. It could be, in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
There is a new technique called severance, which basically allows people to sever their memory and their concept of existence between their work and their personal life. And the reason you would do that is up for many to guess, right? There's personal reasons why people would do that. There's reasons why the business would do it. But some jobs, or well, at least this job in particular, that our main character, we see him taking, you can only have this job if you have been severed.
Oh, so you've got to do it. That's interesting.
So the character we follow for this one division of this big multi-conglomerate company is basically when he steps into work, that version of himself, you see like a filter go over his face, has no concept of his existence outside of work or who he is. He only has a concept of his, I think therefore I am, Descartes style shit, of his existence at the office. And same with all his coworkers.
Interesting.
Right? That he interacts with in this division. And when he leaves, his his normal self has no concept of that guy. It's like they're two different people, right?
That's
in the same body. And not everyone does this, right? So like you get to follow what other people think about his decision to do this in the personal life, and really what the broader effects of this are, of this new advancement are in society, meaning like it's not everyone agrees with it. So that was a part of the show that I was like confused. I was surprised by. Is like they start to already in the first episode investigate the moral conundrums of this, because if you think about it, the other side of him that's at work basically is his slave, only exists every time he wakes up, he's at work. Every time he's gone, he doesn't exist except for in this concept of the work that he's doing for this company.
I can imagine that being shot and produced really interestingly.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So far.
You'd recommend?
I've only seen one episode, but I'm so excited to watch the second episode. I haven't been this stoked on a show since probably the Yellow Jackets.
Nice.
The first season.
It's Adam Scott who's the main guy. He kind of reminds me of a young Jason Bateman in a weird way. Do you get that? Can you see that?
Like a baby-faced Bateman.
Yeah, it might not
baby-faced Bateman's.
B. That's great alliteration for you there. That makes me very happy. So you'd recommend, because that's been on the list for a while, and we're looking for a new show.
It's the most intrigued I've been by a show in a long time, and by a pilot episode in a long time. The ending is super cool of the first episode.
So do you think the ultimate mystery is like, what does he do? It's like, what is the job?
They seem to be setting that up as one of the big mysteries.
Interesting. I'm excited. We will certainly get to that. We did watch a thing in the last week, which was just classic binge TV, like turn your brain off. Just like put this thing on. It was called Muscles and Mayhem, which is a Netflix show about the original American Gladiator team. You might have seen it. It got advertised fairly heavily.
I've heard about this.
Yeah, it got advertised fairly heavily. And it's sort of like, it's supposed to be like an expose on like the lifestyles they led and like how they got to anywhere. And it's actually quite interesting. So it's about like, there's my perception of what the show was going to be and kind of what it was maybe advertised as. Like, I think the advertising was slightly misleading versus what it was actually about. So like the show was really about how the show began and how it was like this hokey little show where the idea was come up by this basically snake oil salesman. And like when they first started filming it, they were literally like in a warehouse with like concrete floors, and the games you saw, and so they were proper like de-evolved versions of those games where they were just like getting injured every 5 minutes. And then like it evolved into this thing that was like bigger than life, and everyone loved American Gladiators, but because they were all working for such little money, they all became so expendable. A little bit about the act, bit like the acts in Hollywood right now. They're just a bit like, okay, if you want more money, then you can just leave and we'll get someone else in, and how the show suffered because they were going for these just big steroided up dudes versus like, you know, the personalities that had built it. Quite interesting. It was sort of advertised as more like the drinking and the drugs and the steroids and all the crazy shit that went on behind the scenes. And I was like, I'm fascinated to know like what that looks like, because they went on like a full year tour where they were actually performing almost every night of the year. And it was really quite fascinating to see, you know, how they all basically didn't survive it. They all would get injured, and then they'd have, some of them ended up leaving the show. So I thought it was going to be around like how the coping mechanisms that they had for that and how they all partied. But it was a little tame, because I think it was because it was from the people who were those gladiators. I think perhaps they toned it down a little bit, but not a bad watch. Pretty fun. I wouldn't say go and watch it immediately, but if you want to switch your brain off, it's not bad for that.
No, I'd be curious. I remember when it was on, and I remember Malibu. He's probably from the roided out versions, but I remember that guy.
He was like a surf dude, right?
Yeah. I wonder how many of them have like, you know, used their fame from that to go create like, you know, be a creator or an Instagram famous person. There's a lot of monetization you could do there.
Yeah, I think a bunch of them went on to be like fitness gurus and stuff like that. So like personal trainers and all that kind of thing, because they were just a little bit before the social media stuff. But you'd be surprised, like one of them, like who wasn't in the original series, but it turns out one of them does like feet pictures on an OnlyFans. And I was like, you earn that living, girl. You do what you got to do.
No, I guess my point is like they could even try and use this zeitgeist now to make money. Like that's
absolutely.
That's a free ticket, right?
They could bring it back right now, and they could be like the legacy ones. Yeah, I mean, everyone else fucking does these days. Christ, it's hard to get anyone's attention. Even Merry and Pippin have their own podcast these days. Please, guys, don't leave us to go and listen to Merry and Pippin's podcast. If you're enjoying what you're hearing, please stick around.
Yeah. What else, dude? I did watch The Bear season 1.
You finished season 1.
Have you heard about this?
We watched the first 1 or 2 episodes, and I thought it was a comedy.
It is a comedy, but it's also a drama. It's a comedy drama. I like it because it's like 30 minutes and it's intense, and like it gets way better at the end. Like the first like middle part becomes like a bit of a drag because you're like, fuck, this is so negative.
The first episode really threw us. We watched the first episode and we were both like, I don't know if I could deal with A, like you say, the intensity, and B, the negativity.
It's super intense, but it's like it's more of a drama than a comedy, but there are comedic elements. Like
so, not Timothée Chalamet and not Aaron Taylor-Johnson. It's the other guy.
He looks like a mix of them. Yes.
Yeah.
It's like if they had a baby.
He's like their love child.
Yeah. So I would say that season 2, my brother says, is one of his favorite seasons of television ever. He's like, it gets better because he was like, I get it. It's a bit of a grind because it's like kind of negative, but like they're doing the character builds right. And so like I've heard really good things about the second season. I would urge you to push through because it has a happy ending.
Oh, right. Okay.
The first season.
My favorite kind of ending.
Yeah.
That's good.
Me too.
I feel like they're doing a really good job of building the characters. Like I really like the cousin. Is he cousin or brother? I think he's the cousin.
Well, he's not really a cousin, but yeah, they call him cousin.
Right. Yeah, I really like him, even though he's the worst possible person.
But he plays it so well.
He's so good in that role.
Well.
Is he in other stuff? Like I recognize him.
He is in something. I looked it up too because I was like, what the fuck is he in? And now I can't remember it again. I'm going to look it up now. But really though, like it's him and like his interaction. Like there's this weird like, you know, I got that Chicago history, so I love it. But like there's this weird found family vibe in this that's like especially real. Like it feels like feels very true to like our modern world.
I definitely think they're building that, and I like that a lot. I feel like the new chef who comes in, the black girl, and she's like trying her hardest to impress and be like get a job with them. I feel like that's going to build nicely to that found family piece that you were talking to.
Yeah,
there's bound to be some sort of fall down at some point. There's got to be some sort of like challenges in the show.
So apparently, this guy his name is Ebon Moss Botrat.
Okay.
Anyway, he's in the Punisher series, but what you're probably most recently
he is from the Punisher series.
He is recently in Andor. He's the guy that tries to betray them. He's one of the dudes that's like really anti Cassian Andor.
Oh my god, he's in two great shows.
Yeah,
he's really good in The Punisher. He's like what's his name in The Punisher? Have you got it up? Have you got the IMDb
up? His name in The Punisher is David Lieberman.
Yeah, he's got a nickname as well. Shit, I've forgotten what it is.
Let me look.
Yeah, he's like the secondary main character in the first series of The Punisher. He's really good. It's like some
Yeah, no, it's David Lieberman. I don't know what his alter name is, but so he like also the other guy in The Punisher, the main dude who plays the Punisher,
John Bernthal.
He is in this.
Oh, really? There you go.
Yeah, he's the older brother that they keep referencing that has killed himself.
And he killed himself.
You get flashbacks.
I didn't realize. I thought he just died of, I don't know, some mystery illness or something.
Sorry, maybe they haven't told you that yet, but it's not really it's pretty early.
It doesn't change anything to me, but that's fascinating. That's cool. We'll keep watching. I think it's been a bit pushed to the side because of the Women's World Cup at the moment, but we'll get back to it.
It's just a good thing it's not like an hour show, because if it was that intense for an hour,
oh my god, I couldn't
fucking neck yourself.
Even. Yeah. I think I'd be following John Bernthal. I'd be like, dude, where's the nearest building top I could jump off of? Because it is like,
for sure.
I don't think I was quite ready for how intense that first episode was. It was certainly eye-opening. The last thing I've done, and was pretty fun this week, a little bit different, we actually went to the Wildlife Photographer of the Year exhibition, and I love these things. You know me, man. I'm a full geek for nature, for dinosaurs, for David Attenborough, all of those things. If you could get those and shake them all up into a little thing and send them out like a cocktail, it'd be the best day of my life. But yeah, the Wildlife Photographer of the Year is amazing. Like, really beautiful photography, really interesting portraits. To win those things, you've got to do something different. Like, there's crazy ones where people have gone under like ice caps and they're taking shots up of like the underside of it and all the crazy animals and creatures you get under there. Fascinating. Just makes me think like the ocean needs to be we need to explore the ocean a bit more. I keep seeing like conspiracy theory videos on like Instagram, and they're like, NASA was originally built to like explore the ocean. They did like 5% of it, and then they changed to look at space. What did they find down there? Like, what did they find down there?
Well, a lot of the if you want to really put your tinfoil on, a lot of these, they call them UAPs now, not UFOs, because apparently they go into the water as well.
Oh, interesting.
Which is pretty interesting, right?
Interesting.
Like, yeah.
What's a UAP stand for?
Unidentified.
Adam
Driver. I was going to say aerial object. Erratic. I think it's like erratic projectile or some shit like that.
Interesting.
I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. So, but they're definitely not aliens because the government now says they're aliens. They're definitely not aliens.
Yeah, definitely not aliens. But my point being that like we do need to explore the ocean more. And so those conspiracy theorists are up to something, although we don't need to do it the way the Titan did.
No, absolutely not. I look forward to the day. I look forward to the day the Wildlife Photographer of the Year, the image of the year is won by a UAP. That's what I look forward to.
Same. Dude, we didn't even talk about that. You guys probably talked about it on the pods that I missed. But I got to say, like, if I was a billionaire, just go on your yacht, dude. What are you doing?
What do you mean?
Why would you go in that? Why would you go in that submarine thing? You just enjoy your life. Just go on your yacht. Try and fix global warming. Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
Why are you Titanceptioning
Fix global warming
yourself
first? Global boiling. We're already there.
Oh my god, what a joke! Jesus. Anyway, sidetrack.
I don't know why they specifically chose that company. It's like, you're intelligent. You're a billionaire. Do your research.
Ask like literally 2 questions.
Any question. Yeah, any question.
Literally 2 questions.
Have you tested this? Why is that
that's a hard no. Like, what happens if like the engine breaks? Yeah, that's a simple answer that they didn't like. They had no solution for that. Like, no one would go retrieve that.
Oh my god.
There was no way. There was no other craft that could go get them.
I haven't read up on this. I just sort of it washed over me as public opinion, more public opinion than anything, and it was nonsense. Just ask any question.
There is no disaster recovery for that. Like, I'm sorry. No. Anyway,
I don't who decided that was a good idea? Wasn't it like multiple billionaires? If it's multiple billionaires and it's that Could that be a conspiracy theory that these guys were sent down there to die?
No, they're idiots. Just being a billionaire doesn't make you smart, is apparently what that tells you. There's a good psychoanalysis here where it might make you think you're invincible, is my point. Because
that's true. A lot of billionaires do have that in them, don't they? Like, look at Zuckerberg and old mate trying to have a fight in UFC. I'm invincible.
Yeah. Should we, now that we've talked about like month-old news, should we carry on to what we've heard?
Let's do it. Well, what we do now is we like to talk a little bit about the things we've heard in our geeky sphere. And as we joke every week, it's not really news. It's more likely stuff we've heard off Instagram that sounds fun. DL, did you hear this week that Beyond the Spider-Verse, the follow-up to Across the Spider-Verse, which was the incredibly successful follow-up to Into the Spider-Verse, it's been delayed indefinitely, which sucks balls because they had already they already had a release date for it previously. It was going to come out pretty much exactly a year after the previous one to finish the trilogy. And obviously with all of the strikes and everything that's happening, it's been shelved for the moment. I'm pretty sad about this.
Yeah, it makes sense. It does make sense though.
It makes sense. That doesn't mean anything to my psyche about this.
Unless it was ready to be done, there was obviously going to need to be edits, and pretty much everyone that would do those is striking. So
there's a lot of talk about the animators properly unionizing and all that. So I feel like that's something that should happen at some point because they just basically get bid out of existence.
Yeah, I don't want to we've already gone too political here.
Hey, how come you can go political but I can't?
No, I just mean I've already used my one chip, so I'm using two now.
You get one chip per episode.
I think they're all missing the point, dude. They're all missing the point. They're not competing. They're fighting over a small pie. Like, they're competing with TikTok. They're competing with Joe Rogan. They're not competing. Like, the bigger pie is the fact that they're competing for eyeballs in general, not the crumbs of what's left in the entertainment industry. And so I think they're gonna hurt themselves more than they're gonna help. But there's certain things like residuals and royalties that I think that's an easy fix. But some of these claims, like, we got to stop AI, like, you just cannot. It's gonna be in every software ever.
You're talking about the bigger actor strikes. Yeah.
I'm just like,
you're right.
But the same thing is that's probably the same reason why these, there's going to be similar demands in the animators. Like, it's just unionizing doesn't always help the union members. Unfortunately,
I feel like you're right in that the cinema experience needs to evolve at some point, right? Like, it's not built for your average person anymore. It's built for someone who can just chuck $30 on a ticket alone. Like, I went to see Barbie the other day, and it's like crazy, like $30 just for the ticket, and none of that goes to the cinema chain. Cinema chain only makes money off like popcorn and drinks. Unless a movie's been out for more than like 3 or 4 weeks.
So interesting that you say that, because the one I went to see Dead Reckoning at was like a $9 ticket.
Oh, wow.
But it was like this super sophisticated theater with restaurant, whereby like it was a craft brewery. You could order beers, everything like from your seat. It was like super great service, like full dinner, That's full cool. lunch, whatever you wanted. And it was like gold class, but like on crack. And but only $9
on bath salts,
or on steroids, I should say, because crack is negative. I guess they both. It was like like gold class if it was properly naturally fit and went to the gym every day. But my point being, like, it was like, how did they get away with like the ticket only being $9? And I'm assuming it's because they make all their money on the other stuff. And it's an interesting model, because I was like, it was a much better experience for me, and it was cheap for the movie. So I don't know what they're doing.
Well, that's interesting. I mean, like $30 for a ticket over here is probably the equivalent of what, like $20? No, more. 20, 25?
It'd be like 22, 23. I don't know.
Yeah.
Something like that.
So I reckon they'd probably make bare minimal off that, the actual cinema chain, probably like $4 or $5 tops. But if they're going that low, sort of that $9 ticket range, surely all of that's going to the distributors. And then they're just getting money from like the meal experience, and then having all of these extras. Because like, if you're having a good time, you'll spend more money while you're there, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, I'm sure it's like the food's overpriced. I didn't even look at it, but yeah, I spent probably $20 or $30. So it's like, if you're getting more on that, then
did you get popcorn as well and a drink?
Yeah, I got popcorn. We got 2 drinks. I think I got like some candy. I don't remember, to be honest. But
support your local cinema, guys. But yeah, that's how they make money. Yeah. So it's super interesting. I'd love an experience like that. And you know what? My favorite cinema experience probably of the last 5 years was when we went to see Everything Everywhere All at Once. And we were in that super old school cinema, and it was tiny, it was pokey, and the chairs were shitty, but like it felt like a real cinema. You know what I mean? It didn't feel like a multi-million-dollar franchise.
Yeah, I don't know. It'll be interesting, man. It's because it's like, even like Sony, right? Like they're not even in the streaming wars. Like they just are
Not
basically
really.
a distributor now.
Yeah.
So I was talking to this guy he's done his time, and he's at this party I was at this last weekend. He's an ex Santa Barbara guy, and he works at Sony. And so his take on this whole strike and everything was very interesting. Because he's got like the business lens on, and he's basically of a mind like it'll be interesting to see what like Netflix does, because they're the ones that like have to kind of define this, because Sony basically Netflix is one of their biggest customers, right? Sony just distributes a bunch of stuff direct to Netflix. So they're not going to like rock the boat, but Netflix is going to have to kind of lead the way on this in a lot of ways. Which
totally. The streamers do,
interesting to watch unfold. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fascinating. That's a really interesting point. I guess looking at it from the business perspective versus the toll on real humans perspective, it's like, and I know we talked about this last week. I would want to go this again. We've talked about this so many times, but like, I do feel like the streamers are going to have to take a hit on their bottom line at some point, because at some point they're going to have to release their streaming numbers. I think you shared that Andrew Schultz tweet or Instagram post with me where he basically said like, this could be bad for everyone.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that it's just gotta be like, it's interesting because it's like you got both sides. Like you've got people saying like, complaining about Bob Iger's salary, but then like, Matt Damon and these other guys are making, double that. So they kind of want it both ways. Like you can't want the upside of Matt Damon and then complain about Bob Iger's salary. Like it's kind of like a paradox.
It needs to be more evenly distributed. It's tough. It's tough when you get these guys who like that's the salary for them, but then like they're also striking. I don't know, man. Like it's very interesting. Back to the original point. How do you feel about Beyond the Spider-Verse being delayed? You a bit sad?
Oh wow, we got in a very big rabbit hole. I'm bummed, but I'm kind of also like, this will give me a chance to like catch up on so much shit, because there won't be new things that are released. Like I can actually get through my queue. You know what I mean? So
my saved list is massive. Well, there are a couple of new things coming out, DL, and we shared this week with our friends of the show. Couple of big Marvel trailers got released. Well, one was just yesterday, but we'll start with the Marvels. We got the final. I didn't realize it was the final one. This must be coming out soon then. The final trailer for The Marvels, the show, the new upcoming movie, which is introducing Ms. Marvel, Kamala Khan, to Captain Marvel and Co. and all of those. All their powers are intertwining, and we've got some reactions from friends of the show. But what do you think, DL?
I didn't even finish the trailer.
Oh, wow.
I was so bored, dude.
Well, you know what's interesting? And you know what's fascinating? So we talked about that Secret Invasion show previously. And the whole point of that is around like, it's Nick Fury. He's come back to Earth for one final showdown. Like, this is his war, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And I was like, there is a strong possibility that Samuel Jackson, he's done with Marvel. Like, he might be like, okay, I've had my paycheck. I'm a 70-plus-year-old man now. I'm just going to go and enjoy my retirement and no longer make these dumb Marvel things. I was like, he could die at the end of this. I was like, absolutely could.
It could happen.
The trailer for the Marvels came out, and I was like, oh, he's right there. He's definitely not going to die in this. I'm like, you've just ruined the whole premise for me.
Fair enough. Like, that's Marvel, though. They always do that.
It's so Marvel.
They always do that in weird ways.
Well, like Endgame came out. Infinity War came out, and they released a movie trailer for the upcoming Spider-Man film. I was like, but he just died in that last one. Why are you showing me things of him being alive? I'm so confused.
Yeah.
We did get some reactions from friends of the show, and a couple are not dissimilar to yours. So, friend of the show, Reegs, who's joined us a couple of times, thanks for your reactions, friend of the show, Reegs. He said he was exactly the same. He's feeling a bit done with Marvel right now. He's a bit over it. But whereas friend of the show, Leone, for example, calling out he loved the look of it. Said he really liked it. It looked fun. Like the idea of, the powers of all these characters sort of overlapping and them jumping between each other, which, quite a fun-ish looking premise.
Yeah. but I think it'll be.
Yeah.
I think it'll be gimmicky. Like, how are they just gonna do this for an hour and a half? Like, you know what I mean?
Surely not. Surely that's like the setup, and then like, or they fight for a bit, and then they're mates. Like, isn't that how these films normally work?
The fact that you're just yachting like the entire movie with like plot points is not a good sign.
Well, we got a big second trailer, DL. We got a big second trailer. So we got a trailer for Loki season 2 and a release date. Oh my god, it's coming October 6th. That's way quicker than I ever expected it to be.
Well, also, I'm stoked that it's coming out so fast. But
Same.
I just want to ask you, what is the delta here? Because I'm so excited for that. And I think it's just like everything about it's better. The storyline is more aligned to the core known issue, the core conflict of like the central story. The actors
saga
are better. It's just it's not as formulaic. Like, you know,
I don't know if I'd go as far as the actors are better. I'd go as far as
come
saying,
on,
like,
Owen Wilson.
They're
and
more
freaking
established. They're more established in the world for sure.
It's not even that. Like, do you think Brie Larson's a better actor than Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston?
I'm just not getting dragged into that rabbit hole yet.
No, it's not a rabbit hole. What is her best acting performance?
She's won an Oscar, hasn't she?
I don't fucking know. Do you?
Well, what's Tom Hiddleston's best acting performance?
He's got so many. Loki being one of them,
Name
which is
5.
crazy because it's in the Marvel MCU. What's the one with Carmen Diaz? He's in that, isn't he? Oh no, that's not him. That's
who the hell's Carmen Diaz?
That's Jude Law.
Good start to this. Good argument, my man.
Okay, maybe it's not the acting, but at the very least, their character.
And who's Carmen Diaz?
Carmen Diaz?
You mean Cameron Diaz?
Cameron Diaz. That's just. I mean, like Brie Larson just is not as intriguing of a character in general.
Yeah, she's got the Superman problem in this.
As Owen Wilson and Loki, and the premise, like the actual plot line, is just much more like unique. It's not as formulaic. I can tell you how this Marvel's movie is going to go. It's going to be same fucking formula that we've seen in the last 5 movies, except with like 2 girls, its powers are switched. As opposed
3
to
girls.
7 rings. 3 girls whose powers are switched, as opposed to 7 rings, or as opposed to, you know, a quantum gun or fucking whatever, dude. It's just like substitute new fake thing with other protagonist actor. Like, whereas Loki, it's like an anti-hero, a detective thriller, and a time-space myth. It's just like so much more unique. Of course it's better. Of course,
yeah, I'll give you that. It is certainly more unique, and I'd say it's a more interesting premise as well. Like, I feel like Captain Marvel's been set up as, like I say, this sort of Superman white savior character, and like, what's her defining characteristic? I can't name like 2. Like, she had a haircut in one of the films. She's overpowered, and I don't find it that interesting when they're that powered. So you've got to put her up against more powerful characters. It's like, and then can the other 2 keep up with her? So who knows? But then there's some interesting, if you watch the Secret Invasion show, there's an interesting ending which includes some of those powers. So I'm going to leave that dangling tantalizingly right there. But apparently there's a bunch of X-Men references in the trailer. I need to look this up. I want to make a YouTube video on it. So I'm intrigued to know exactly, in the Loki trailer specifically, I'm intrigued to know what they are and how they sort of like fit into that storyline, because they're surely building towards the X-Men here. Surely.
And so you're saying Loki has references to the mutants? Like, come on, bro.
Yeah.
Come on.
I know.
This is, yeah, they should just,
I'm so excited for this.
It's like,
yeah, just give me more of this. All right, final bit of news, NDL, before we move on. And as a nice segue into our main topic today, did you hear this week that apparently some of the very nude scenes in Oppenheimer were censored in certain countries? Did you hear about this?
Yeah, I did.
So, you know, even though we joked that maybe they overplayed the amount of sex in this,
well, they oversold, you mean?
Yeah, definitely oversold it. That's why I was there. I didn't care about an atomic bomb. No, but apparently in the Middle East, Southeast Asian countries, like, I don't know if you've seen the images, but they like CGI'd like a nightdress onto Florence Pugh.
Or I should say, I didn't see.
Yeah,
I wanted to see.
I like what you did there.
No, I did see that. Yeah, I mean, like, what are you gonna do, man? I mean, countries are, where that's the state of the world.
Do you think it was necessary? Do you think it was needed?
Of course it's not necessary. Of course it's not necessary, but we've got like, a bunch of dictator regimes in the world, and they decide that you can't see boobs, which is just absurd.
Take the tater off that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, this is the third political statement of today, so I am fired.
My God. We are a political podcast. Who knew?
Yeah.
Well, then,
it's just ridiculous.
Do you want to preface our main topic, DL?
Yeah, dude. Our main topic this week is Opie, big old Opie, the old Oppenheimer. And I think are we going to call this the part 1? Meaning part 2 is Barbie. And then we have to, I think we scrap, we're doing this on the fly. I think we scrap Aquaman these next 2 weeks. And the question becomes, which one is better? Oppenheimer versus Barbie.
Oh, interesting.
So we analyze Oppenheimer this week. We analyze Barbie next week. And next week, it's not is this better than Aquaman? Because obviously both are going to be. It's which one is better.
Interesting. I like that you're assuming that Barbie's going to be better than Aquaman 2018. That is up in the air for a lot of people right now. But okay, I'm down. We will absolutely do something similar to that.
I think we have to do that. I think that's the way. It is the way.
Are we going to just do full spoilers for this? Like, everyone knows the Oppenheimer story, right? It's not like a secret. Dude. It's a biopic of a historic character.
Yeah. No, we're not doing spoilers.
We all know the 2 bombs got dropped. Yes. DL, do you have a stupid plot summary for this?
I do. An awesome biopic about the moral boundaries and dilemmas of technological advancement, viewed through a beautifully written, character-driven story with a boring-ass Law & Order episode attached.
That is very similar to mine. I just said a tale of 2 boring hearings. And you're right. Like, that is sort of the crux of this film. Before we get into it then, do you want to guess for me the current IMDb score for this film?
I'm going to say 8.8.
Oh, it's an 8.7. You're so close.
Oh, really?
It's right there. And then do you want to guess me the Rotten Tomatoes score?
The Rotten Tomatoes would probably be, it was high, but it always goes down. 94.
It's 94, baby. You got it in one.
Yeah!
Ding, 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 ding. Nice.
Even a blind squirrel finds a night.
You've got it. You got to find one sometimes, my man.
Yeah.
I thought I'd change the final one. Metacritic's been a bit odd these most recent weeks. So we are using letterbox reviews, which I believe is all audience. So what do you think the full audience score out of 5 is?
3.75. Can it be points or does it have to be solid number?
It's 4.4.
Interesting.
So, I mean, like, this is getting big reviews right now. And of course, you all know that we love Chris Nolan. This is a return to one of our famous anthologies, movies from directors we love. We should really speed this up a little bit. I feel like there's so many directors I want to talk about with you. Chris Nolan directed. It's got an insane cast. Now, this is just very much skimming off the top, right? Listen to this. This is just like 15 among all of them. It's got Cillian Murphy, it's got Emily Blunt, it's got Robert Downey Jr., it's got Alden Ehrenreich, it's got Kenneth Branagh, it's got Josh Hartnett, it's got Florence Pugh, it's got David Smalchin, it's got Matt Damon, it's got Josh Peck, it's got Jack Quaid, it's got Rami Malek, it's got Casey Affleck, and it's got Gary Oldman. And that is just the cream of the crop. Like, what on earth is this cast?
Where's Gary Oldman?
He is, and I got this when we were watching the film, he plays President Truman. So there's a scene in it where he meets President Truman for like a real brief hot second. It's a bit like when he's in the makeup for Churchill. You know, he did the Churchill film a couple of years ago. And he was like fully prosthetic up. And that was, it was a blink and you'll miss it moment. I remember turning to the partner half through the film and I was like, pretty sure that's Gary Oldman. And she was like, no, it's not.
It doesn't look anything like him.
No, they've done a really, really good job. Well, do you then want to give me the sort of basic overview plot of this film and then we'll get into the specifics of it? Remember, all spoilers, guys.
Yeah, I guess, like, you know, at a high level, you basically see Oppenheimer's journey from being like a really, really interested student.
Nerd!
In, what is it? What do you call it? Like,
theoretical physicist.
Yeah, he's a theoretical physicist, like as a student, to like basically pioneering that realm in America at Berkeley, and through the rise of it as like a established profession in and like a scholastic enterprise in America and beyond. He started in Europe, into him being basically selected to run the Manhattan Project, which is, the basically the code word for our advancement of the nuclear program and nuclear bombs in America.
Yeah.
All the way through to post the Hiroshima drop, and the hearings that followed, kind of indicting him and kind of running him through the ringer, and his feelings and kind of moral platitudes post having the bomb drop. So recruiting the team, what happened after, and in classic Christopher Nolan fashion, it's not linear, which for the most part I think is okay in this time, but there's a couple gaffes, I think.
Absolutely. And that's a really key point you made there. This is so Christopher Nolan. It's almost like he's plunged the depths of his movies and he's got together like his favorite bits and he's sort of like shaking them up like a cocktail, like I was joking about before, and chucked them all out onto the screen. There are so many like fractured elements of this. So like to start with, like you say, it's pre-Manhattan and post-Manhattan Project. And then you've got the past, just for Oppenheimer's specific life, you've got the past, and then you've got like the present playing. And then layered over the top of this, you've got this extra layer, which is a very Nolan thing of like, you've got some scenes which are done in black and white, and some scenes that are done in color, and they all have their own denotative points, and they're all specific. There's a reason why it's done like that. And Nolan actually came out while he was doing press for this film and was like, there's a reason for some scenes being in color and some in black and white. He had to explain it. Apparently, it was some people weren't quite getting the different POVs. So the color perspective is Oppenheimer, and it's quite subjective. It's quite warm. It's his own, the supposed to be his own take on it. While the black and white is from Robert Downey Jr., who's great in this, by the way, Strauss's perspective, and it's sort of more cold and calculated, and it's his semi-destruction of reputation of Oppenheimer, which is kind of going on in the background, and it is so fractured, but it works so beautifully.
I didn't know that, although I think maybe at a subconscious level I did, but I
think knowing Nolan the way you know, you would have got that.
Like, I mean, I understood that it was only in scenes where Strauss was in, but I didn't take it. I almost took it as like just this is that period, not this is his perspective.
Yeah, it's supposed to be the subjective versus the objective in many ways.
Okay, that's interesting. That's worth a rewatch with that even in mind. But yeah, it covers and it it weaves those storylines throughout. I'm not gonna try and remember which parts come where, but just know that for the most part, you're jumping in between these 2 or 3 timelines. 3 timelines.
Yes.
Mostly two, but there's a third because it's like when he's super young.
Yeah, for the most part, it follows like the linear story of his life while also showing the 2 hearings coexisting at the same time effectively.
Yeah.
And it's interestingly done.
It is. But overall, right, like it's a super, super engaging watch. I mean, we could talk about the cat, like the plot, it is what it is, and it investigates a lot of stuff, both of what happened, but also like the debates at the time and post and moral kind of qualms or concerns. And I think a pretty steel-manned way, meaning like it does go into both sides for a lot of it. I would argue for the most part, it paints Oppenheimer as a positive and kind of, its view is empathetic towards him.
I'd say so, yeah.
Which isn't necessarily everyone's view when it posed. Like, there's a lot of people that don't agree with that. But I think that what you could, he's not a villain as a dude. Whatever your qualms may be, and I think that's the message that it does kind of left me with, at least.
I think in this context, the villain of the piece is portrayed as Robert Downey Jr.'s Strauss. Like, that's who is the villain in this story. But like, if you think about the broader context of creating the A-bomb, the government using it, and I'm going to get into some of the problems of the characterization here of Oppenheimer in a little minute, because I've got some questions and I'd love to get your perspective on it. But like, people do view him as like a villain, and for many reasons, this film is kind of like a tragedy in many ways. It's this long drawn out story of creating one of the most destructive weapons ever. And it's among Nolan's most realistic, I'd say. Like the way, like Dunkirk was pretty realistic, I'd give it that. If you watch Memento, it's got a lot of realism to it. But for me, it's the one that is probably the most character-driven of his stories.
Yeah, and it largely is. I don't think there's I haven't done like a deep dive on it, to be honest, but like I did know a bit about Oppenheimer before in preparation for the movie and just like knowing. And I don't think there was anything that was like crazy. Like, I don't know about the Florence Pugh stuff, but I don't think there was anything that was absurdly like a lot of liberties taken. I think a lot of this is basically from that one book that was written.
Yeah, it's the American Prometheus book. And I agree. And a lot of that is based on a ton of research that was done on Oppenheimer specifically and like the world around him. And yeah, I was going to say this up top. A lot of it seems sort of factually correct for the most part. We'll talk a bit about it later on. And I like that. I like that Nolan can intertwine big dramatic storytelling with and you know, a lot of it is dramatized, and you know, you don't know everything that everybody said and how it works, but like he does manage to get that quotation marks factual correct parts of like his life in there as well, which some of these biopics don't. They just think, fuck it, let's just do a good story.
It does feel like people will learn things from this. Now meaning it's not just like it's entertaining.
Will they learn the lessons, Dio? Will they learn the lessons?
I think the people will learn like things about history that they probably didn't know while also being entertained for about 2 hours and 20 minutes of this movie. The last 40 minutes, I gotta be honest, were a bit of a drag.
Well, let's talk about that then. A bit about the pacing. Yeah, I agree with you on that. It was very methodical.
There's something about the last 40 minutes where I'm just like, if this was supposed to be the crux of the movie, like these two perspectives, you fuck something up in the first half because I didn't get the vibe that that's what this was. And, you know, frankly, if I could, you know, and I'm no one to critic Nolan, but the point is we're doing a podcast where I give my opinion, so I'm going to. I think that there's a little bit of like the time dilation here that doesn't help the movie in certain ways. Like overall, I think it's you know, it's better than say a Tenet. But I shouldn't have to watch the movie twice to care or understand why I should care about a character or plot point. There should be a clear reason why I care about it in the first viewing that is either informed or changed in a you know, insightful way upon second viewing. I kind of felt like he just didn't nail the setup of this Strauss Oppenheimer conflict in the first half of the movie. So when it was kind of thrown in my face, I was kind of like, why do I care? Why is this relevant? What is the point of this? And so there's something more I think he needed to do in the beginning to like ground that as one of the main central conflicts, because it felt like just an addendum to a great movie about moral choice and Oppenheimer.
I agree. I do think that the whole Strauss being the villain of the piece was supposed to be a rug pull, and I can't tell if you were supposed to gradually understand that as the movie came about, or like it was that one scene where you realize that Strauss had been pulling the strings in his court hearing the whole time, and he was ahead of his PR person or whatever he was. I felt like that rug pull wasn't overly well designed or pulled off,
or executed. Yeah. If it was meant to be a rug pull, if it was, because he just wasn't relevant enough for so much of the story for it to feel like he was gonna be this like integral part.
Well, I think if you watch back, and this is just from doing my research on like this specific movie, not actually Oppenheimer's life. I think if you watch back, you'll notice that a lot of the times when they're in a room together with other people, he is trying to undermine Oppenheimer's POV. So for example, the time when they're all sat around a table with all of his physicist mates, and he's like, the Russians knew about this. Like, how did they know? There must be a leak. Whenever he's in a room with other people, he's constantly trying to undermine Oppenheimer because of his pettiness. And he's trying to get like other people to see that Oppenheimer maybe isn't like the crown prince that, you know, maybe he's made out to be in the papers or whatever. So I think if you watch it back, you might notice those things. But like without that context on a first viewing, it's hard to see that as anything other than a rug pull that's not quite earned.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to get out of it in the first viewing other than like what's been explained to me after. Like it's kind of like Tenet where at the end they explain a bunch of stuff and you're like, oh, I guess that makes sense. But for the first, 2 hours of the movie, I didn't get anything from this. In fact, it was whereas like when he does the time stuff well, like in Inception and I'd say Dunkirk, you are confused at points, but it's not in a way that like deters from you understanding the characters and what you're trying and their conflict and their motivations and like the plot. Like you might be a bit confused, but you get what they're trying to do, and you get that Leo's a tormented soul that has psychological issues that he needs to deal with.
Agreed.
I don't know. There's something that he misses here.
Yeah, I think thematically, the most interesting bit of this whole film is Oppenheimer's gradual understanding of what he's creating. That point of like, perhaps, and we're going to come back to this, perhaps his dream job wasn't the dream he thought it was. Like, it was actually creating something of mass destruction. And like, there's no way he didn't know that's what he was creating, but his enthusiasm, his excitement at getting the job and all those things maybe overwhelmed those or pushed down those emotions. That should have been the central point of this. That whole build, like that horror, almost horror scene that we'll talk about at the end, where he's announcing they did it and they dropped the bomb on Japan, and he's in the little auditorium with the basketball ring behind him. And you have these split visions of like people celebrating versus the horror he's unleashed. That should be the key point of this, you know?
Well, that's what I'm saying. And like
that's
that kind of was detracted. That was detracted. Yeah. And that was like what I thought it was going to be, but it was detracted by the last 45 minutes. And I feel like
agreed.
The Strauss thing, like there's a way to do this movie where his purpose is clearly tied to the general theme of like government distrust of these, and just general like bullshit antics around free speech, right? With like the communism stuff. And that is like his theme adds an investigation on that, which is like, you know, the government overreaches and power is, you know, corrupting absolutely. And like, and like, you know, something around that. Like, I don't know what the theme is, but I think those two things would be fun to play off each other in combination with Oppenheimer going on this journey of realizing that. Whereas right now it just kind of, the way it was, it kind of just felt disconnected to that. Because I thought they did that really well too. They showed like the apparatus of government and military and with the communism and all that. But Strauss was just over here kind of like a politician separate to that. It didn't feel connected.
And the interesting thing was, so like the movie, the two like key later points of the movie that we're kind of getting into are centered around two hearings. And I joked about it in my stupid plot summary. One, which is a really small, effectively room. It's a small scene, but it's also a small room of a bunch of government officials who are reviewing Oppenheimer's clearance, so ability to see like restricted documents. And then you have this larger courtroom piece, which is Strauss, who's effectively, he's going for the Senate. Is that right?
Something like that. Yeah, senator spot.
Yeah, he's trying
or a cabinet position. I think he's being sworn as a cabinet position. Yeah, for the
and it's a case of the two scenes they're effectively being grilled, right? It's like they've been cross-examined in a court of law for like their positions on different things. Oppenheimer's is around whether he was a communist, whether he was feeding information back to Russia, which is fascinating in itself.
That's such a more interesting thing to investigate, right? Like, and why he might do that in the context of this over-militaristic U.S. government, right? Like, that's such a more interesting.
Well, the parallel is Strauss, who is being effectively. You don't know this until the very end when it all sort of like crescendos. Like, he put Oppenheimer in this position. He effectively built the platform for Oppenheimer to have his reputation destroyed by being in these hearings, having his clearance taken away. And the whole point of the two is the two outcomes. Oppenheimer has his clearance taken away, but still becomes, you know, the poster child and still wins awards and for being, you know, a great bloke, where Strauss doesn't get onto the Senate because the people he's hurt along the way and his pettiness come back to bite him on the ass. And I find that fascinating.
Yeah. I think, you know, maybe part of what the issue is like I'm overanalyzing it. My notes are like that whole section was so much telling. Much telling. Like, even like, what's his name? That guy, Mr. Robot, his whole monologue basically just explained
Rami Malek
away the entire. It was all narration and explanation as opposed to showing, which is like I feel like there was just a better way to get that message across with showing, where it didn't feel so on the nose.
I shout that's a Chris Nolan thing, though. He does love a monologue. He does love someone explaining the ending to you. Look at Tenet. Look at everything in Inception.
Well, there's a certain elements like with Inception where it's kind of necessary because it's like new concepts. Whereas when it's just basic historical points and, you know, like it's just, there's a different, you don't need to narrate that.
Yeah, but not everyone knows the basic historical points of this.
Yeah, but you can show it. There's a way to show those same outcomes of his pettiness as opposed to just narrating it in a big opening speech in court, right? Like where you basically explain this whole part of the plot that's been tacked on. Like in Inception, you have to explain it because it's this fucking sci-fi concept, you know? Like, I don't know. It's not as entertaining, right? Like it's not as engaging.
I'd just shout that. So if you think about it logistically, I would house I'd house more people than you think wouldn't know a second bomb was dropped in Japan. Like that baseline of history. Everyone knows the first one got dropped. Everyone knows that they sent the deterrent, but not many people know the second did. So
show it.
Maybe you needed to explain some of it just for people who didn't know the history.
Show the news.
Yeah. Well, I don't think they wanted to show the actual bomb being dropped. Yeah. And this is an interesting point because I know a lot of people who went into this thinking that the culmination of this film was going to be them dropping the first bomb on Japan. And they would genuinely, and this sounds so morbid, disappointed that wasn't how this ended. I was like, guys, like, that isn't what Nolan's about. He's not about morbid action for the sake of action.
I was a bit, I loved that scene where they test his positive and he sees the future of what's going to come as he's being applauded. It's basically what I think should have been the climax of the movie. Maybe it was, but
I love that scene.
I thought it was going to be a bit more gory though. And it would have been one of those moments where I thought that a little bit more graphicness would have actually been appropriate. It was pretty tame for what I thought was coming.
I think it was R-rated. So like,
I'm not saying it's not. I just think like there's certain things like
they could get away with it. Yeah, but I don't know if that's Nolan's thing. Like
it's just like I've been to the Hiroshima museum and like so I've seen some of the like renditions. It's pretty gnarly, and I guess like it's just one of those one of those moments where like the graphic it should feel shitty.
Yeah, it's rough.
And so showing it to its true shittiness is like actually okay. Like when people are like, "Oh, you showed rape and it made me feel bad." It's like it should.
Yeah,
that's the fucking point.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%. But I know exactly what you mean. Well, let's talk a little bit about performance.
Dude, this movie's got such good performances.
I think that's one of the things that really drives this movie.
Yeah.
100%. I would say there are definitely some characters who are let down by Nolan's somewhat inability to be great at writing characters.
Remy's one of them for sure. He basically drops a pen.
Yeah, literally. I'd say Florence Pugh, like her whole arc is just like she's a bitch and she fucks him and then leaves. It's like there's something that's disconnected from that performance. Like, why would you keep going back to this person? It doesn't make sense to me.
Why would Opie or why would she?
Why would Oppenheimer keep going back? Like, and you can say treat him mean, keep him keen, but like if she's just gonna just dismiss you the moment you arrive, like you'd get over it pretty fast.
It's 100%, but it's 100% lust. Like you could tell he's the kind of guy who is so intrigued by intelligence and things that are different. Like he flirts with communism as an idealism just to understand it. This woman is like very intriguing to him in that way. And I think it shows the humanity of him.
Sure. I guess over a number of years that like, it's supposed to be over a number of years. Yeah. You'd get over it.
And she's
like
sexy.
Even that intelligent. Like she is damn sexy. Let's not like even when she's covered up in the Southeast Asian versions of this. But but Cillian Murphy in this, Jesus, he's good. I forgot he was Irish.
Yeah, I didn't even think about. I definitely knew he was Irish because of his fucking name, but his accent, I didn't even think about it, which I guess is a sign that it was good.
He's just a man in pursuit of a goal. You can see those flaws of Oppenheimer, that he's not a people person. Like, yeah, he becomes a politician, but like he's a robot for most of this, and it's fascinating to see those flaws plastered on a big screen
with an ego, right?
An ego. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. His accent wasn't the normal Cillian Murphy.
Yeah, no,
like he did something different.
It was very precise. I was interested by the duality of like Oppenheimer, right? Like, because if you think about it and you watch this film, like there's an idealism to him about creating this weapon as like a deterrent, right? The whole way through, right up to those very last minutes where they actually use the atomic bomb. But there's something that doesn't quite sit for me with Oppenheimer, at least how he's portrayed here. And help me out here, because the government, for one, is a militaristic force at this time in the world. He is intelligent enough to realize that they're not just going to use this as a deterrent, especially if they know, which they do, other countries have access to similar technologies
or are trying to build similar technology.
Yeah, and it's this like duality of like he keeps creating this thing for them that he knows is going to be used for pure evil. And I just feel like someone that intelligent, even who is a bit of a robot, has enough morals to go, oh, is is this a good idea?
I don't think it's that black and white. I think he definitely thinks about it, but it hits you when it hits you. But I don't think it's so black and white as like it's going to be used for pure evil when you set it against the context of how the Nazis might use it if they got there first.
Sure.
And so you cannot do that moral analysis until you know for sure.
Well, as soon as he realizes that the Nazis are never going to use it, you're a bit like, okay, we're done here.
But then by that, I think and I don't know the timing of it, like historically, but the movie seemed to portray it as they were pretty much done by the time they figured that out. The damage had already been done. Like most of the intellectual property, while they didn't have a fully test done, had been built. And so it's like at that point, you can stop, but they'll find someone to do the last 5%.
We will find him.
That was my understanding of it, but sure. I don't know if that's historically accurate. But it was kind of like displayed that way, I thought.
Interesting POV. I just felt like it was a bit naive of that character. Like he's either portrayed as being naive or it's like a political backtracking to be like, oh, he didn't realize. Like he fucking knew.
No. Well, I think that's a lot of people's critique of Oppenheimer is like you got all the fun of building it, all the hoo ha ha of being the head dude to do it, and then you played both sides. Once you did it, you basically full 180'd and said this is the most. You can't have it kind of both ways. That is the critique of him. But
there's an interesting line in it by Emily Blunt when he goes back and sleeps with Florence Pugh's character, and she's like, you can't do this deed and then people feel sorry for you.
You can't commit the sin and then.
I wonder if that's like a really telling like point of this movie. Maybe that is the point.
It is a poignant line. That was thought about when they made that, to have double meanings for sure. That's a really good piece of dialogue.
Surely.
Yeah. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, me neither. Maybe we just solved this movie, DL. But I quite liked everyone around that, like the main, Oppenheimer, Cillian Murphy. I love the Avengers of scientists. I thought they were fantastic. The physicist Avengers. I really liked all those different personalities. I've forgotten the guy's name. The guy who just goes against him at every possible turn.
And he wants to make the H. Guy. Yeah, he wants to make the H bomb.
Yeah. I love that. And like he's probably almost as intelligent, but just doesn't quite have the nous that Oppenheimer has at that point. He doesn't quite have the political power.
Yeah.
But he lets him carry on working on it. And it's like those little scraps like that where he's like, yeah, you keep doing whatever you want to do. I'm like, he knows what he's doing.
How good was Matt Damon?
So good in this.
And Josh Hartnett. Dude, why did that guy not act for 15 years?
Man, he was so out of the zeitgeist. I don't know what happened to him, but he needed to come back.
I think he quit acting. I think he literally quit.
I think he missed out on the Batman role and he was a bit like, shit, I've really screwed up it.
Well, he came back. Did he decide not to do Batman?
No, Bale got pulled in instead of him. I think he did a bunch of like TV stuff. Like he did that Penny Dreadful show. He did a bunch of things, and none of it really hit. Some interesting trivia truth also about Matt Damon for a little bit later on. We're going to come back to him, but there is a point about that character that he actually denotes the passage of time in the Oppenheimer story. So if you're watching it really closely, and I didn't notice this. This was something I picked up on a piece of trivia or whatever, but like as the timeline progresses, Matt Damon gets more military badges on his uniform. So like that's how you know time is passing, because like as you flip to a different scene, like he's gone from a general to a general major and like all these things. Quite interestingly done. Like I like that, and it's subtle as well.
Yeah, no, I thought he was I thought he played the character really well. Like a gruff general.
What do you think of Downey Jr.'s performance?
I thought like it was a really good performance. It was just like, again, I don't want to, beat a dead horse, but it was like really hard for me to care because I didn't understand his point. I didn't understand his motivations and him as a character, and B, like what his conflict was with the rest of, the plot. Like what was his... What was the goal? What was the whole point of that story?
But that was kind of the thing. Like it was so petty. So Strauss's whole deal was that Oppenheimer basically gaslighted him a bunch of times, like in public, and he was just mad that he was not intelligent enough to get him back. And I find that fascinating that someone so petty with a bit of power can, rise to that level and just try and take everything away from you.
I think that's interesting. I just don't think it's 45 minutes interesting.
Sure, but it was a nice juicy role.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Look, his acting was good. His acting was good.
Yeah, I thought he was great in it. He was really dastardly and cunning, but equally like cowardly as well. Like he had a bit of everything. I found that portrayal of the character interesting because he felt he was in control all the time. But if you make that many enemies at some point, some of them are going to come back to bite you almost.
Yeah, and I feel like I just didn't like him and his assistants like back and forth. Like, was it his assistant? Like, it just was so contrived. Like, I don't know.
I thought he was like his PR guy.
Either way, he was like against him by the end. I was like, this feels so networky.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Like this has got like we said this up top. This has got a serious cast. We're not going to get to everyone, but just a few to check off who I did like in this. I thought David S. Malcham was a really interesting like side character. Like he just popped in and out. Like he was barely in it, but like
what character was he?
He was the character who basically tried to change the narrative around Oppenheimer. So like the point of the story is that when Oppenheimer was young and he was working at university, he had some ties to like various like communist parties in terms of like his ideals. The big rug pull is that Strauss gave him the documentation on Oppenheimer to try and change the narrative. And it was like, Dash Maltson, man, he's got like a look about him. He just looks bad.
Now I know who you're talking about. He's the guy with the bubbles or the polka dots in Suicide Squad.
Polka dot man. Yeah.
Yeah. Now I know.
He's a favorite of the show. He is a former Goofy IMDb picture winner. Multiple times, I believe. He's probably one of the only ones that's come back and won it multiple times. I did like you said, Rami Malek was interesting in this. I thought he was a little underbuilt as a character. But like overall, like the cast is just unreal. Like everyone's in their A game. Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit then about like cinematography and world building?
I mean, I think that cinematography wise, like obviously there's the time stuff, which I think generally speaking works, except for the Strauss thing. Like, cause it like the cuts make you put you in different perspectives and different like, and you're starting to figure out like, it's like this journey of figuring out where and why Oppenheimer is so different in different scenes. And it's kind of, it adds intrigue to it. It adds like mystery to it. The like scenes where he's like imagining the atoms are super powerful. And that's like something that like really puts you in the world of a physicist's mind. Like 100%. Like that was really cool.
I was really interested to talk to you about this a little bit because that was one of the key things that really made the color scenes stand out where it's Oppenheimer's perspective, because you sort of start with these weird, almost peering into the microverse or the whatever you want to call it, visions of like waves and particles, and that gradually expands as his, well, in the beginning, his mental health's terrible. And you see a lot more of it, and then it's sort of like as his mind is stretched to build the project, it gets less and less intense. But then at the end, when he realizes what he's done, it evolves into these like molten fire, burning world type, like huge grandioso scale type mental images, and it's fascinating, almost just like a split second view into his mental health at different moments of the film.
Yeah, no, it is cool. It's cool how it's like juxtaposition between like his mental health, but also like the ingenuity of like his mind and kind of the way you need to be to excel in that
hidden
world.
Universe.
What did you think about like the commentary on like, freedom of thought in this era in the US, like with the communism and all that, and like the investigation of like, what I think that the two things they tied together were like that part, the communist part, as well as like, how did Russia get access to it? That a lot of these things are up in the air. And
you tell me what you think, but like I think it's fascinating the parallels to like today. And that's kind of what I was thinking while I was watching it. Like, if you think about how much information everybody has on everything and how nothing seems to be secret anymore, like takes like 5 minutes to hack someone's social media. One of my buddies from back home had his LinkedIn account hacked the other day, and I just got these random messages in Chinese. And I was looking back, and I could see our previous message chains. It changed the picture, so I didn't know who it was, but I could read. And I was like, well, that's someone from my days when I was in Manchester. I know, I know this isn't this Chinese person, but then it was just these random messages. So like, I think it's fascinating as like holding a mirror up to today. Like
I thought overall it was a really, really like good view of the time and like I guess, the overreach and like, I guess, fear mongering that like government can have. I thought it was a good investigation of that. Like, a good investigation of how part of why he's interested in that is why he's a great physicist and you shouldn't stop that. But B, how if you're, that does come into conflict, juxtaposing that with something of this gravity and being too free with it, what that could do.
Yeah.
Which is, the Soviets got access to a spy did infiltrate. And so it was a very even keel of like, I guess, investigation of both sides of that argument. Right. I think there was truth on both sides, which was interesting.
Like, I'd love to talk a little bit first, just before we wrap up, then a little bit about action and CGI, because I'm kind of shoving them together, because it's not like there's like action in this film. It's not like an actual Avengers film, even though we have the Avengers of physicists. I thought like the point on the reason why CGI and action, so like the main action pieces are what it builds up to. So the testing of the first atomic bomb, which in itself is terrifying and hideous, but like before this came out, Chris Nolan said there are no CGI shots in this, and I think what people took from that was that he'd actually detonated an atomic bomb. where what he really meant was, what he really meant was like there are no fully CGI like shots in this. Like everything has a base in some sort of reality. And but that's kind of fascinating to think that people just sort of ran with it. Like, oh yeah, he detonated a real atomic bomb in this. Let's let him do that. Like, I know he can blow up a plane, but
like Nolan's got that much pull.
Yeah, like he's got more pull than some governments. Like, what is happening? That build up to the first atomic bomb exploding is fascinating and terrifying at the same time. Like the exploding of it, like the countdown, how they've all got to have the glasses to stop them seeing the actual explosion itself. Totally. In terms of action, it's pretty intense.
No, it's pretty crazy, and it's super, super like cool to make something as like simple as a test like that. Dramatic.
Not even the actual use of the thing, which is they did. Terrible to laugh at, but they did. Just testing it is bad enough.
Yeah.
You could see why he quickly backtracked. He's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't be doing this, guys.
Yeah. I just really liked it makes you think though, like if you were against Nazi Germany, what would you do? I think the main thing is you can't I think many people's opinion is maybe you just don't drop it on a populated city. You try it first as a deterrent, just as a show of force,
deterrent somewhere.
But I guess my point is like the actual development of it. I think I leave this movie thinking like, it had to be developed, right? Like that was there was a real scenario where if you don't involve yourself and you don't push, the people to build it, someone worse might, right? Like.
Yeah, someone will.
Within the context of what I know, I don't begrudge Oppenheimer and the U.S. for developing it. It's more what happens after.
And I guess that's the escalation point as well. We've sort of roughly touched on. You build this big bomb, is someone going to build a bigger one, then a bigger one and a bigger one? Like where'd it stop?
Yeah, but when you can blow the world up, like what was the line? Like what's the difference? Drowning in 100 feet of water or 1,000, you still drown. Like at some point,
yeah.
Bigger doesn't matter, right?
It was beautifully shot. The testing of the bomb. Just on a side note, the silence directly after it, how
it was just like quiet.
It was eerie as all hell and kind of horrifying, and it leads into that scene afterwards. We sort of been jumping around about where he's they're celebrating. They're like, we did it. They dropped the bomb, and then he's having these flash. Sort of like mental images of like the actual people suffering from it, and it's like juxtaposing the joy and adulation and love for him with like this like hideous, the hideous effects of what's what could be actually happening to people, and it's fucking terrifying.
Yeah, no, it is. It's that was the coolest.
Nolan is absolute pomp.
No, he killed it there. Now I wonder though. I mean,
yes, sir.
What do you think he does next? I know I'm going off script, but do you think he does another biopic, or do you think he goes back to sci-fi?
That's a really good question. Nolan. I don't think he'll do another biopic. He seems to be doing various
one of each,
different
one in, one out.
What's he not done? I think the next one he does is a buddy cop comedy. What do you reckon?
No, I feel like he goes sci-fi, he goes historical fiction. Or sorry, historical biopic. Sci-fi historical biopic.
Interesting.
Didn't he go like Interstellar, Dunkirk, then Tenet, Opie?
So you reckon he'll do like a future sci-fi? I don't
Yeah.
know. I think he might do something a little different, something a little bit more grounded next time. Because he's not done like a really grounded film for a while. Like I know this is
pretty
grounded,
yeah.
but it's very sci-fi. One of the things we didn't talk about was like the fact that if you're not a nuclear physicist or you're not a theoretical physicist, 90% of the dialogue in this movie is going to go way over your head. Like they just don't explain anything. They just throw you in and expect you to keep up.
Yeah.
I was like, half the time I was like, yeah, cool, I know quantum physics.
Yeah. I guess like that's part of like the comedy of it is like more the interactions, not what they're saying, like how they act.
So we're saying buddy cop movie next. Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about tones and themes then. What were your key tones and themes for this?
I mean, one that stuck with me was like the result of kind of hubris in general and like an ambition.
Hubris is one of mine, yeah. Yep.
They definitely investigate like, you know, the military industrial complex is a theme.
Yeah. And humanity's ability to harness science and technology.
Yeah.
Like all of that mixed together.
The moral boundaries of that. Yeah.
Shaken up in that cocktail.
Yeah.
This is a weird cocktail we're making over here. I feel like it's just getting added to.
I feel like the theme, because it's not like a fictional thing. Like the theme of the story he's trying to tell, though, is like, you know, technology will progress. I would argue technology will progress like ruthlessly forward.
Yeah.
And, you know, its repercussions are not fully understood until after it's been, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I had a tone and a theme, and I wonder if you've picked up on this. And I know we've been doing our anthology, which has been a lot of fun, but it's one that's sort of run through a lot of his movies, like right from the back of like Memento. So like this sort of theme of like, and I kind of touched on it a moment ago, kind of being careful what you wish for, and like maybe your dream job in quotation marks isn't all it's hyped up to be. Like you look at things like Memento, he wanted to be a police officer and it fucked his life because he was taking on the side. You look at Inception, Cobb's dream job is to be an Inceptor, let's call it Incepticon. He's and it basically fucks his life by incepting his own wife. There is this theme running through it. Do you think he's got this like self-hatred? Like he really doesn't actually like his job?
No, I think he likes his job.
I think so too. But it's it is unmistakable that there is something about, you know, being careful what you wish for in all of his movies as like a running theme.
Yeah, I think it's also just a fun, you know, that conflict is a pretty fun thing to explore, right? So I think he taps into that.
Totally. Yeah. All right, then. What we do now is we give you 3 reasons you might want to watch this movie and 3 reasons why you might not. We would usually do non-spoilers, but as we're going full spoilers here, let's do it, DL. What are your 3 best and 3 worst?
My 3 best would have to be, I mean, just the cast and overall performances is definitely one.
Yep.
I think the largely nuanced view the movie takes on some pretty tough subjects, including, you know, technology, the big historical things that happened, as well as like the critique of kind of the U.S. government and freedom of thought, and just in general on technological advancement. I think it's worth viewing just for that. And then I would argue like one of the more cool scenes, like my favorite poignant scenes, is like that post-success scene, which I think is like, you know, the climax, my climax of the 100%. Movie. I think is worth sitting through at least the first 2 hours of. Yeah.
You climaxed in the movie.
Yes, I did.
That's actually my second one. I had that totally, like that juxtaposition of like the joy and like I said, adulation versus the horror of the thing. So I did also call out performances, but more specifically Cillian Murphy's. I thought the way he portrayed, you know, this clearly troubled person and how he found solace in this thing which he kind of knew was a bad idea, but was so fascinated by he ran with anyway. Really fascinating, really interesting. My third one was the Nolan-ness of this movie. Like this, like I say, feels like a culmination of, you know, everything from Memento to the time dilation like a Dunkirk. It feels like a lot of his, not greatest hits, that's the wrong way of looking at it, but like he's learned so much from his other movies and how to build these stories that it feels very much like this is a culmination of those things.
Yeah.
Now, if you don't mind, I want to give you my first worst because it mirrors nicely my last best.
Okay.
The Nolanness of this movie is my first worst. So if you're not a Nolan fan, if you're not someone who is massively, like we are, enamored with his work, this could be long and dull and just a biopic about someone you know little about. Like, I can see this might not be for everyone.
I actually think like the first 75% is for most people. It's that, I think that's the 3 hoursness of it. That would off-put people.
Like the black and white, the time dilation, the jumping back and forth between different story arcs. If you just want like a straightforward movie, if you're like a fan of Transformers, for example,
of course,
this is not going to be for you.
If you didn't know that,
that's what I mean. It's just not. For everyone.
If you didn't know that, like that's tough. What about your other two?
Tough on you.
What about your other two?
What? I had whoever played Einstein.
You weren't a fan.
I didn't love that role. Like, it was a bit weird. Like, the guy who played him kind of looked like a plastic model.
Okay.
Not for me. That was an interesting plot point we didn't get to talk about. The whole
passing of the baton.
How Strauss thought that Oppenheimer had undermined him to Einstein when really Einstein was overwhelmed by how problematic the work could be.
Yeah.
And then I just had sort of like, I mentioned the duality of Oppenheimer's personality and like how I felt maybe he was naive in pushing forward with this project. It played on my mind a lot while I was watching it.
I mean that's not even a bad, like maybe that's just the truth, right? Yeah.
Yeah, no, maybe. And so the truth hurts, DL. The truth hurts.
Yeah.
What are your worst, man?
My last 45 minutes, I just didn't love it. And a lot of show don't tell in the last 45 minutes. So those are my first two. And then I just feel a bit shortchanged on my Florence Pugh nudity time based off of what was coming out before. So I'm just glad I'm not in Southeast Asia seeing this movie, because then I'd have been really mad.
Yeah, that would suck. That would really suck. All right, so what we do now normally is we rank this movie on our classic rating system, which is it better or worse than Aquaman 2018, which we both know it is. So what we are going to do is hold off till next week, and then we are going to ask which of the Barbenheimer movies is better. Is that what you want to do?
That's what I want to do. I want to get to the bottom of it.
Nice. So instead then, let's quickly rank the Nolan movies. We've been doing it as we've been going through. So far, we have watched Tenet. We have obviously watched Oppenheimer. We have watched The Prestige. We've watched Dunkirk. We've watched Interstellar, Batman Begins, Memento, and Inception. DL, what is your rating system for those movies?
So my rating so far was Inception, The Prestige.
Yeah.
The Dark Knight.
Yep. No, you mean the Batman Begins.
Oh, that we've seen. Sorry, Batman Begins. Memento, Dunkirk, Interstellar, Tenet. And I would probably have to put Oppenheimer. I don't know if I would put it above. I would put it above Dunkirk. So I would make it number 5.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I think I found this really hard. So my rating so far is Inception, Memento, Batman Begins, Dunkirk, Interstellar, Prestige, and Tenet. Now, I really struggled because I don't like this more than Inception or Memento.
Yeah.
Batman Begins for me is just it is a snapshot of my life. That is a thing that I don't think even Nolan will surpass.
Yeah.
Dunkirk, loved that a lot. Interstellar, loved that a lot. Prestige, one of my favorites of his movies, and I'm sad that it was second to bottom. So this is my second to bottom of a favorite of his movies.
Really?
So it's Inception, Memento, Batman, Dunkirk, Interstellar, Prestige, Oppenheimer, and Tenet. And not because it's a bad movie, just because the others are so good.
I could argue Dunkirk's better. That's a debate. They're very similar in what they are.
I think Dunkirk's better than this as well, but maybe it's because I've seen some of these tricks before.
Yeah.
Okay, DL. Let's finish up the show with a little bit of trivia, true or false. DL. True or false? In order for the black and white sections of this movie to be shot in the same quality as the rest of the film, Kodak actually developed the first ever black and white film stock for IMAX. Is that true or is that false?
True.
It is true. It's mad. Fascinating that they did.
Nolan's got pull. True.
He's literally creating the future. Fascinating.
Or the past.
True or false, DL? Matt Damon was actually set to take a break from filming and even promised his wife, under one condition, if Nolan made the call, he would do the movie. Is that true or is that false?
It feels like this might be a trick question. It's like some timeline thing, but I'm going to say true.
It is true. As luck would have it, Nolan actually offered Damon the role and the break has just been put on hold. So I assume he's on break now. And finally then, true or false? The Harry S. Truman line, "Don't you ever bring that crybaby back in here ever again," is historically factual. Is that true or is that false? So President Truman kicking Oppenheimer out of his office.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It feels true.
It is true. Yeah. Apparently, Truman did actually say it to his staff after his meeting with Oppenheimer, which sort of completes Oppenheimer's quotation marks redemption to the whole piece of being like, feeling all of his guilt. Look, ultimately, it's Chris Nolan, man. Like, what more can we say at this point? Like, he's just the auteur in cinema right now. I can't think of any other director that I would drop everything for and go and watch a 3-hour movie by them.
I can, Scorsese, and I'll be doing it with the new movie with him, Leo, and De Niro. But
Flower
of the Sunset Moon or some shit like that. I don't know.
Fair.
That's it.
All right, let's wrap it up, DL. Where can they find us?
Find us at thepodcastassemble@gmail.com or podcastassemble on Instagram, where we'll be posting stuff. Reels, more like.
We be posting stuff. Check out our last episode with David Port Beckenfeld. We've started posting reels just there. We're going to post some more. Fascinating. The dude is a 3D VR artist. Absolute legend. Highly recommend checking that episode out.
So until then, man, share the pod, give us a review.
5-star, baby!
And we really appreciate your ears and eyeballs.
Yeah. If you know anyone who likes this kind of stuff, please do pass it on. We love it when you do. We love getting more ears on this. And a 5-star review will always help with that.
It will. Until next time, guys and girls and everyone. Laters Gators.
Tally-ho!
Tally-ho.